How are you?
I'm well. I'm well.
All right, we're live, Jim.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I just want to take the opportunity to welcome everybody to Middlesex County Library Board meeting for Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask for provisions of disclosure of pecuniary interest or any general nature thereof. Seeing none, we'll move to the minutes of March 22nd meeting of the Middlesex County Library Board. I look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Mary Gay, second by Brad Richards. Any comments or questions with respect to the minutes? If not, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move right into item 4, which is our visioning topic, and it's equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism work in Middlesex County, and presentation by Linda Brock, our Director of Library Services. Lindsay? Sorry, did I say Linda? Lindsay Brock.
Either one.
Okay,
Thank you,
we'll go
Mr.
with
Chair.
Lindsay. Thank you. Sorry.
I'll get my presentation up here on the screen and get it started. Here we go. Everyone can see that now? Okay. So this is a presentation to formally address and recognize the equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism work that the library is pursuing, and to include you, the library board, in this dialogue. So as library staff, we work through situations involving equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism each day. But in order to prioritize this work and to continue learning and doing better each day, it's important to identify systemic racism and inequality that exists within the library, and to develop a framework to achieve greater equality and representation with our collections, programs, and services. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we'll start off with some definitions to help frame our discussion. So we'll start with equity. Equity is the fair treatment of all people. Equity is the process. Equality is the result. Diversity is the demographic mix or makeup of the community, with a focus on the representation of equity deserving groups. And inclusion is the creation of an environment where everyone feels welcome, is treated with respect, and is able to fully participate. Racism is defined as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. And systemic racism refers to policies or practices entrenched in organizations which result in the exclusion or promotion of designated groups. Systemic racism is sometimes more subtle than overt racism. So now, understanding the language and having that framework, the language that we're using, and recognizing the goals of this work that are talked about in those definitions, what does this work look like, and where are we in the process? So this work touches all aspects of library service, collections, programming, services, staff management, and development. So what does this work look like for us? Some examples are listed here on the screen. So integrating the values of equity and inclusion into personal lives, work, and relationships. Ensuring equitable and inclusive behaviors. Identifying, addressing, and removing barriers in processes, policies, plans, programs, and services. Providing ongoing learning that facilitates equity and inclusion at individual, organizational, and community levels. Creating safer spaces that foster mutual understanding and respect. And partnering and collaborating to support and build equity and inclusion. So those are some examples of what this work looks like that relate to library work. So next, what work are we doing now? So what is ongoing and what is planned? What's the direction that we're taking? Listed before you, we have some of the work that's in progress now. First, you'll see professional learning around decolonizing the library catalog. So this involves, obviously, staff need to understand what this process is and what this looks like. What it means is updating subject headings that are in our catalog. So when a person is searching for a book, searching for a topic using the online catalog, there's different subject headings that are attached to each record and each item, and you can click on a subject heading and it can take you to books related to that subject. So you kind of start in one place and it's a bit of a breadcrumb trail, and it can help people when they're researching, when they're looking for different resources. And so through this work, the process is updating those subject headings to use culturally reflective and relevant language. So some of those terms that are currently in our catalog are outdated, are inaccurate. They don't represent our communities. They don't represent, the opinions and beliefs of the library system, and could be offensive as well. So that's part of that work, is identifying what the terms are in our catalog and what they should be changed to. This work can also mean relocating items or updating the locations of books and items in the collection. So for example, moving a text on Indigenous beliefs from what would be labeled as folklore to religion. So that means relocating it, giving it a different Dewey Decimal number so that it's shelved differently. And through that process, you're recognizing those stories and the value behind them, versus, currently they might be in an area of the collection that doesn't recognize those stories and their importance. Evaluating books for inaccurate information. So, there may be texts that are outdated, both in the adult and the children's collection, that we want to ensure are removed if that's appropriate, so that we are providing our patrons with accurate information. So prioritizing the purchase of Indigenous materials as well is part of this collection work process. And so that's something that we'll be working on. A lot of this collection work is planned for this summer and fall of 2022. And it'll also involve updating some policies and procedures related to collection. So it's a whole process of how we approach our collection development and management process. As well, work that we're doing, we're looking at programming and partnership work. So we're looking to prioritize diversity in the programs that we offer. Whether it's some of the programs that we're offering currently, like our drag story times, the virtual ones that we're promoting, planning, looking ahead to in-person programming, as well as things like our Indigenous Book Club that has been operating virtually. So just prioritizing those opportunities that come to us, and those opportunities where we connect different groups in our community in order to prioritize diversity in our programs. We're supporting staff to use anti-racist and culturally diverse picture books and resources in story time. So how can we work these, incorporate these collection items into programs that are already running, and opportunities for all ages to be exposed to texts that are valuable and that have these messages of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Collaborating with local community members and groups on programming and events. So this is ongoing work that we've been doing in the past, and are working on more in-person programming opportunities coming up in the summer and beyond. So some examples of past programs would include paint night programs that we've run with an artist, Moses Lenham. You've heard me speak of him before. The collaborative program between Moses and Angeline Bully that we've hosted in the summer of 2021. Those are a couple examples. And then most recently, just to draw your attention to again, is the collaboration with the Nishwaunsnagong Child Care and Family Center and the partnership between that organization and Middlesex Early On, which I'll actually speak a little bit more about in the Early On update. That's a little bit later in the agenda. So that's a partnership that really got off the ground at the end of last year, and that we're extending and expanding on as we move forward. And like I said, looking for opportunities to highlight or feature Indigenous books and stories. So whether that's through our book clubs, whether that's through our online catalog, our website, just making sure that how we're promoting books, whether it's in branch or virtually, is that culturally reflective. And finally, staff training and development. So the work of pursuing equality, representation, and respect really starts with library staff. So educating our staff and encouraging them along this path is a priority. Some of this work began in 2021 with staff participating in the 4 seasons of reconciliation training, which we continue to enroll new hires in this throughout 2022. This learning was extended when staff took part in a virtual tour of the former Mohawk Institute Indian Residential School and the facilitated discussion that followed. So that took place back in December. In 2022, staff training will include online learning modules on racism, social inequity, and diversity. And then in-person staff development opportunities will hopefully return in 2022 and into 2023. And we'll be looking for opportunities to work on racial and social inequity in those events as well. So that's some examples, just an overview of some of the work that we're working on now, and then what's upcoming in the next few months and in the year ahead. So finally, what are our next steps? What does this path look like? So establishing an equity, diversity, and inclusion committee is one of our next action items, looking probably to the fall for this to be established for library staff. And so we anticipate that this will include a combination of professional support staff and frontline staff, so that it can address both kind of the behind the scenes policies and procedures, as well as activities that are happening in the branch. And so this committee, what we see them doing is to help establish a framework, an action plan to address racism and social inequity, and continue to formalize and prioritize this work for the library. As well, we look forward to doing more work to understand who our communities are, so enhancing our understanding of our communities, and where our service gaps are, where there are new groups, individuals, communities, organizations that we should be more aware of, and ensuring that they're reflected in the work that we're doing in the library. And just overall, where are those gaps? Where are we falling short? Where can we make improvements? So getting that, enhancing our understanding of that. Policy and statement development. So what policies and statements are missing? And this work will begin today with today's meeting with the Indigenous Respect and Acknowledgement policy that's on today's agenda. So what additional policies, statements, resources, supporting documents should be in place to guide our work and help staff do this work. And then as well, an existing policy and procedure audit. So this would be to address systemic racism and inequity where it exists in our current practices and in any of our documents. So that's a little look at what we're working on, what our next steps are, and we'll be coming back to you to report, probably later in the fall, towards the end of the year, once this committee is established and once we've kind of worked on the documents and the framework that'll come from that group, come back to the board to discuss and ensure we're on the right track. I'm just going to stop sharing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, that's a good report. When I'm looking at it and I see the committee that you're going to establish in the fall, right? Are they going to be, would that committee be the one that would look at the policy statements and development? Is that where that would that type of work that that committee would do as well?
Through the chair, so I see that group as kind of helping to identify those areas of the policy manual and of our procedures, whether they're written, formal or informal, what needs improvement. And then, because you, the board, give me that role of helping to develop policy, and then I bring those back to the board so that the final decisions on any changes are made here. But it's kind of getting a different lens on those documents in order to make sure that we're making the changes and the updates that need to be made.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is there any questions with respect to this visioning topic? Seeing, I don't see any hands up at all, so I'll just, I'm going to ask for a motion that the equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism work in Middlesex County Library presentation be received for information. I look for a mover and a second. A move by Ruth, seconded by Warden Alice Warwick. For the comments, I know it's going to be a busy time in the fall to get this all together, but and there's a lot of, I guess it's a lot of free thinking to get it all in place so that nobody's offended by what comes out of it. So good luck with that one. So thank you very much. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're going to move to item 5, which is action item, and it's Indigenous Respect and Acknowledgement Policy, a report from Lindsay Brock, our Director of Library Services and CEO. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report and accompanying policy before you. So just a bit of an overview. Middlesex County Library recognizes the importance of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report and the responsibility for public libraries to support and participate in reconciliation work. The library has made Indigenous collections and programs a greater priority and is committed to prioritizing and amplifying voices from our Indigenous communities. So again, this speaks to a bit of what I spoke about previously in the presentation. So the policy before you is composed of 3 key elements, and the policy itself is kind of advised upon by the Ontario Library Service. They provided a framework of what a policy should address. So we've developed this through a review of that document, as well as policies and documents from other libraries around Ontario. So it includes the endorsement of a land acknowledgement statement for Indigenous peoples in this territory, a statement that addresses library collections and the value of Indigenous materials and authors, and a statement about library services that highlights the library's approach to serving Indigenous populations who may be accessing library services. So the land acknowledgement statement as part of this policy is the product of work done with local Indigenous community members in the summer of 2021 in preparation for the Angeline Bully and Moses Lenham virtual programming. And Liz was a key player in that work as well, beginning this reconciliation and acknowledgement work in really 2018 into 2019 when I was on my maternity leave. So I really appreciate all of the framework and the research and the work that Liz has done to help with this process. So introducing a land acknowledgement statement to board meetings and other events will reinforce the library's commitment to providing safe and welcoming spaces for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis staff, volunteers, and patrons. As I talked about previously in the presentation, we are actively prioritizing collection management work to address issues within our previous practices of subject headings and where items are located and that sort of work. And so formally recognizing this work through the establishment of a policy is a sign of respect and affirmation and is one step in the journey towards reconciliation. So the policy itself, which is on page 3 of the PDF, so it gives a purpose to the establishment of this policy and then includes those 3 kind of main sections that I discussed. So it includes a land acknowledgement statement, and I'll just read some of the text along with that. So with this understanding, Middlesex County Library acknowledges the first peoples on whose traditional territories we live and work. A territorial or land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes the unique and ongoing relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. Acknowledgement of the traditional territory upon which we all live and work provides an opportunity to pay respect to ancestral and traditional territories and to prioritize, amplify, and hold space for Indigenous voices and experiences. To this end, the following land acknowledgement has been developed in consultation with local Indigenous partners and library staff. Middlesex County Library acknowledges the history of the traditional territory on which we are learning, working, and organizing today. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape peoples, who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. Middlesex County Library is on land within the area of Treaties 21 and 29 and the London Township Treaty 6. We value the significant contributions, both in the past and the present, of local and regional First Nations of Turtle Island. We acknowledge the historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. So the policy continues on with when the acknowledgement should be used, and again, description of this work in relation to collections and services, and then it ends with an official acknowledgement and endorsement of the Canadian Federation of Library Associations Truth and Reconciliation Committee. So that document is attached. It's a lengthy document. I won't read it all here, but really valuable information in that to attach to our policy. So the recommendation before you is that the Indigenous Respect and Acknowledgement Policy be approved and that the Middlesex County Library Policy Manual be updated. And I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question.
There we go. Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do we include the Kettle Creek, Kettle Point and Stony Point Oneida Nation as well?
I don't believe, Liz, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we do, because that is not entirely in like Middlesex County within our borders, but we have worked, but like Moses Lenham, he's a member of that nation. And so I know there has been some consultation on that when we were working on this statement. But as far as I know, no, that territory is not included.
I just wondered because like the official plan that was part of we had to consult with them, and because they're bordering, so I'm just not sure if that was supposed to be included or not. Thank you.
But I'll confirm that for sure.
Okay.
Is there any other questions in respect to this? Lindsay, just one question. When I look at that and the acknowledgement of the use and acknowledgement, with respect to the territories, is that is the purpose of this to have this announced before every meeting? Is that the idea, or is it just? And I'm asking for a personal reason.
Mm-hmm. That's the intent with the policy.
Yeah.
It kind of helps identify what events it should be used at, and then it can be used at events beyond that, right? Because library staff could, when appropriate, use this statement at the beginning of a program. There's also the opportunity, I think, to have different versions of this statement for different situations. And so whether it's, just a different version that we could say at the beginning of every meeting, this being our formal statement. So that's something that maybe we can discuss further.
Yeah, because I'm just reading because it says acknowledgement may be printed, spoken, or displayed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just why I had the question. Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions with respect to this acknowledgement and including it in our manual or update? Mary Gay.
Thank you, Jim. It's not a question. I'd just like to thank Lindsay and Liz for all the work they put into this. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll just read the motion. I know Lindsay's highlighted, and the motion is that the indigenous respect and acknowledgement policy be approved and that the Middlesex County Library policy manual be updated. I look for a mover for that and a seconder. Moved by Brad, seconded by Mary Gay. Any further comments? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move down to correspondence and information items. If you have any questions with respect to any of these, just raise your hand and I'll keep an eye out for it. But the first one is 6A, which is Systems Internet 2022 compared to 2021. Next is 6B, Systems Circulation 2022 to 2000 compared to 2021. And social media activity, March, April 2022. And 60 is a library activity report. Lindsay, you want to comment on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just highlight some of the activities that have happened over the past couple of months. Work on the library administration building, revamping our space to allow for the integration of social services staff. That work continues. So social services staff are now using 3 offices at the building as of last week. And so we're moving ahead with plans for some new furniture and shelving for the center area of the building where library staff, most of the existing library staff in the building will be working out of, making changes to make it work for both service areas. So we're excited to be moving ahead with that. Enhanced cleaning procedures. This kind of came out, it's crazy to think, but Nadine and I were talking about this probably at the beginning of March 2020. So just before the pandemic hit, we started to talk about cleaning and children's areas. So cleaning toys and materials that kids are handling in our library spaces. And it was good timing because we've had to do a lot of enhanced cleaning over the past 2 years. And so we've just formalized additional procedures for handling how we handle our library spaces that align with the processes that early on staff follow. Library cleaning procedures will now align with those followed by early on staff, intended to reduce the potential spread of various pathogens that are present on materials that children handle. So even thinking beyond COVID, these are some new procedures that we've implemented in the branches just to make our spaces safer. ABC Read With Me, I'll actually go over that a little bit further down in the agenda, so I'll skip that item for now. We're participating in the implementation of an HR management system at the county level, which I'm very excited about, a system to help manage all of the deadlines and anniversaries and paperwork and everything that goes along with staff management. So we're going to be working on that with county staff over the summer and into the fall. Our innovative Vega implementation. So that's our new public facing catalog. So we continue to work towards the implementation and launch of that product, which will replace our current public facing catalog system. But prior to implementation, we have the opportunity to kind of clean up our data. So clean up our records and how things are organized and how things look kind of behind the scenes to streamline records and really maximize the features that are available in the Vega product. So that's the work that we hope to complete over the summer and then hopefully be able to set a timeline for the launch of our new catalog once we get through that work. So hopefully into the fall, we'll be able to set that timeline. Programs and services. So we're excited to relaunch our in-person library story times. We're using our new event calendar on the new library website to allow branches to manage registration. Some branches are having drop-in storytime programs like we used to. Some prefer to have families pre-register just because the space is a consideration there. So we're excited to offer that program to our communities. And Middlesex County Library will be participating, celebrating the Year of the Garden. So we were first contacted by Thames Center about, kind of providing some support in around some of their activities. And so we are encouraging all branches across the system to recognize this event on June 18th. Library staff are encouraged to create garden book displays. We have prize package and different take and make bags and gardening themes and different programs. And staff are also busy getting their community gardens ready at a number of branches. So all that work aligns really well. And I think that's all of the points on that report that I'll speak to.
Any questions with any of those items on that report?
Nope, but I can fill you in a little bit more on Year of the Garden in Town Center if you want.
On June the 18th?
Yeah, it's going to be great. We have, luckily, the same time Thorndale is doing their Horticultural Society is doing their garden tour. So there's an opportunity to tour people's gardens. And then we have a band booked from 1 till 4, the same time that there is a beer tent and entertainment at the Thorndale Community Center. And there will be food there because there's a ball tournament happening. The concession booths will be open and we're going to have a little garden party. So I think anybody who wants to come should come out and enjoy the day. It'll be good.
Thank you. Of course, you'll have a library sign up, won't you, Allison?
Yeah. And thanks again, Lindsay, for involving the library. It's great to have everybody on board.
Thank you. Any other questions then this far? Okay, then we'll move on to item 6E, which is the early on program update, Q1 for 2022. Lindsay?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Nadine compiles these reports quarterly and submits them to the City of London, and data goes to the province as well. So that's where you'll see so many statistics captured in this report. So I'll just point out a few things. So this report covers January to March. Staff were operating programs with pre-registration requirements and capacity limits because we still had restrictions, particularly ones relating to early years programming. So that was the situation during that quarter. Like I mentioned, early on's partnership with the Neshawasnagong Family Center, that partnership began kind of in December 2021 with a program at the Strathroy branch. And then the report speaks to a program which has already happened in May 5th. It was at the Longwoods Scanadoe in-person program there, which encouraged both Indigenous and non-Indigenous families and caregivers to join the event and participate. So successful ongoing partnership that's happening there. The report mentions for May, we have returned to drop-in participation. So back to our usual early on model that encourages families to drop in and use our spaces and participate in the programs. And early on as well, we'll be helping to celebrate that Year of the Garden, incorporating this theme into their programs.
Any questions with the early on item? Okay, then we'll move to 6F, Middlesex County Library Newsletter. Lindsay?
So let me just make sure I've got the right newsletter. Oh, okay. I have too many PDFs open on my screen right now, sorry.
Service updates.
So just a few more activities I think to point out. We got a new book drop in Wardsville. The old unit, unfortunately, I think it may have been bumped by a car. The lock stopped working. So it was a bit of a wait with some of these COVID-related production delays, but brand new drop box, I think looks fantastic and is working out there at the branch. And then the rest of the newsletter speaks to some more activities, book sales returning to library branches, and we're working on kind of potentially a larger book sale. That's something that might be coming up. We'll give you more info on that. and summer learning coming soon. So work is happening at all the branches on what summer programming is going to be looking like in each community.
Any questions on that newsletter? Okay, then we'll move on to 6G, which is community connector update. Lindsay?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to point out, so the Community Connector Committee within the library puts together this newsletter every month. Stories from the branches are collected. Different branches are designated to provide some experiences, some firsthand experiences, and stories from their patrons, which are always fantastic to hear. So if you get a chance to read through this newsletter, I highly recommend it. Doug Warnock, the supervisor of Park Hill, and Elsa Craig, he talks about a patron coming in with some concerns about their landlord and, wanting to know more about the Landlord and Tenant Act. They said their landlord was entering the dwelling without the appropriate notice required by law. So a situation where staff could point them to some legal resources, kind of let them know what the law says and provide them that information to hopefully help with their situation. And then Kelly is one of our newer library assistants. She works at the Dorchester and Thorndale branches. She gives a couple stories. One about a young mother and toddler who came to the Thorndale branch again, wanted to print off some pages of a new tenant contract. Kelly was able to make a connection with them and provide them with library cards and take and make craft bags. And really enhance their experience of the library, which is fantastic when someone comes in for one reason, gets one problem or issue solved, and leaves with so much more. And then Josh has a community connector impact story as well. In the newsletter, speaks to someone participating in the motel program that Josh works with, helping them get a psychological assessment and answer questions and concerns that they've had their entire life, help them get referred to different services and organizations. So again, another amazing story of the work that Josh is doing really every day, and helping this patron in a variety of ways beyond just the mandate of kind of dealing with the situation of homelessness and housing insecurity. It's really an example of kind of that wraparound service that we are working towards with this community navigator position. So I just wanted to draw your attention to those stories.
Any questions on any of those stories? Very interesting to see them, Lindsay, to be honest with you, and see what people's interests are and what kind of service we do provide to the community. So, next we'll go with 6H, which ABC Read With Me, May 2022 update. Lindsay?
So maybe I will share my screen and go through this just to provide a little bit more detail. So this was an update that Shauna Daranyowski, our children's librarian, and Allison Beauchamp, the senior facilitator with early on, they gave this update to staff on how we're reworking this early literacy book bag project. So let me move through the pages here. Previously, this project existed just in a slightly different form. There was a Middlesex Children's Services Network Early Literacy Working Group that different people moved on to different positions. Positions were kind of realigned. So the library, as you know, we have an agreement with the Social Services Department for the library to kind of take over the administration of this project. And an early years team was created to administer this project through the library system. So part of this work has been a rebranding. So previously these were always called the baby book bags. And it's been rebranded by the group as ABC Read With Me. So this was voted on by the group and kind of tested with some library staff members in order to help with promoting this program to the public. So we've got this new logo on branded bags, and then within these bags is a variety of resources. To receive one of these bags, families just have to visit a library, visit an early on program. They can also be referred by the health unit, get a voucher, and stop by the library to pick one of these up. And bags can be given to any expectant parent or caregiver from Middlesex County, or a parent caregiver with an infant or toddler up to 2 years. And so within the bags, they've got board books, different resources. So there's a baby's music booklet that you can access some music online. There's information about family info, different service, kind of family related organizations, library bookmarks. And then a couple new things that we added when we took this over, an early on bookmark and Middlesex Family Connections information as well. And so part of the work that will happen next year is kind of reevaluating what resources are in this bag. What are people looking for? What are they actually using? Because it's a lot of paper. Do people still like to receive pamphlets and postcards and bookmarks? That'll be part of the process that we're going through. We do have some tracking statistics. Again, this was like an existing tracking form. So we'll be looking at revamping this as well, but this helps us know who is coming in to collect these bags, age of children, some simple statistics like that. So again, intended for any family, and what's been part of the training that staff have received is what should you talk about when you give one of these bags to a family? It's not just handing it over the counter, it's taking that as an opportunity to talk about early literacy, talk about what the library can do, what early on programming can do, promote what's in the library, make sure people have a library card. All of those things go along with this process. And then staff were given a link to a video, again, to help them talk about early literacy a bit better, because storytime staff know the importance of early literacy, but it's something that maybe not all library staff are as comfortable talking to families about. So we're helping them with some training in that way.
Thank you. Any questions with that? Items 6H? Seeing none, we'll move to 6I. Andrew Moore, document screening program. Lindsay?
And maybe Liz, can I get you to speak to this one because you organized this program yourself?
She'd be happy to.
Absolutely. Just 1 second. I'm just trying to pull up here. So we were approached by Andrew Moyer, who's originally from the Lucan area. In the summer of 2021, we did a special summer learning program for adults with his short documentary, which was Babe, I Hate to Go. And that followed Delroy. He was for the past 30 years, had been visiting a farm near Mount Bridges and worked there for 6 months out of every year. So the original to the short documentary followed him as he was diagnosed with cancer. And then his subsequent return to Jamaica. So this program was a much longer documentary on what happened after Delroy returned to Jamaica and the impact of the whole situation on his family. So we tried our very first hybrid programming that we've done since, I guess forever. So we had seats available in person in the Lucan branch, but we also made the event available through Eventbrite and Zoom, so anyone could join us as well. So we had pretty good success. We had a great turnout. It was wonderful to have it. We had Andrew was one of the speakers, as well as Michelle, and she was the producer from St. Lucia. So it's a really great opportunity to highlight a local director. And it was really great to see as well. This documentary was part of the Hot Docs for CBC. And so we got a lot of promotion and traction from the CBC articles, and yeah, it was a great opportunity and something we've never really done before, and something to explore perhaps in the future again.
Thank you. Is there any question with reference to item 6I? Okay, then seeing none, then I look for a motion that items 6A to 6I be received for information. I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Warden Allison Warwick and second by Ruth Adams. Further comments? All in favor? That's carried. Now, are there any inquiries? Mary Gay, go ahead.
Thank you, Jim. It really, just a comment. First of all, Lindsay, thank you for the new Dropbox in Wardsville. It's a nice addition and people are quite happy to have it. So thank you very much for that. Lindsay, I did attend the last OLS meeting. It was just a round table discussion. We've kind of talked about what some of the boards and some of the staff members face. So that was pretty much what it is. But there was a lot of discussion on the right to disconnect policy. And I know that that's kind of on everybody's minds and lots of agendas right now. So I'm just wondering, we have a policy now. Do we need to update it, or how does that work into our library system?
Yes, through the chair to Mary Gay. County Council just passed the county's right to disconnect policy. I believe it was not today's meeting, but the last meeting. So that's a policy that our process is typically that we just, now I've lost my words, but we use that policy as our own. We implement it. And so I did mention it to supervisors at our meeting at the beginning of May that it would be coming, but that more information would come out in terms of what that means for library staff. It's the type of policy that will look a little bit different depending on what the staff do. So I'll go through that process, get it on. I think I'll likely need to bring it to the group to our next meeting to adopt it. That's the word. Adopt it and make sure that staff have a copy and kind of go through that process of what does this mean for library assistants? What does it mean for library supervisors? And what practices might we have to adjust? I think we do a good job of maintaining that line, but some staff cross it themselves where they're committing a bit too much themselves to the position. So you kind of have to rein them in so that we're helping them find that balance. So that's going to be part of our process as well.
Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate that. And I'm sure you have some work to do on that. And I know it must be difficult, really, that some people do take advantage of it. I hope I never do, but anyway, thank you for that. I just thought I'd give that little bit of an update, which wasn't much, and just ask about that. So thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Chair Mosley.
No problemo. Is there any other inquiries? Let's see, done. Then we'll move to item 8, which is new business, 8A. The next meeting is August the 23rd, 2022. Next, we'll deal with bylaws, and I look for 9A, number 22, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of May 24th, 2022, meeting of the library board. I'd like a mover and seconder for first and second reading, please. Moved by Mary Gay, second by Brad Richards. All in favor? That's carried. And then I look for a mover and seconder for the bylaw to be given third and final reading. Moved by Warden Warwick, seconded by Ruth Adams. Any further comments? All in favor? It's carried. Item 10 is adjournment. If there's no other comments or questions, then I look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Brad and second by Warden Warwick. All in favor? It's carried.